you're a spiritual refugee, it may mean that you've tried being a member of a church and that didn't work out well. You've tried the Christian religion, but that didn't work out well for you for whatever reason, and now you're kind of a refugee. You know you can't just go back there. Well, I came from Second Baptist of Bongo, and I've left there, and I can't go back to Second Baptist, because for whatever reason, it didn't have anything for me. I'm a refugee from there, I'm not going back. They didn't realize at the time that Second Baptist of Bongo wasn't really their spiritual home. It was a way station at most. It wasn't their spiritual home, but they thought it was. And we talk that way to each other. This is my spiritual home. This is where I really get nourished. This is where I grow. We talk that way. But Jesus said, no. It's just not true. He says, no, your spiritual home is the kingdom of heaven. That's where I came from. I came down here to tell you about it. So this becomes a problem for a lot of people. Okay? It becomes a problem because they can't grasp it. They don't know what we're talking about. They have this idea of heaven being off someplace, and God's off someplace, but when you look at their normal life, it doesn't really relate a lot to it, maybe. And so they struggle with, okay, my destination is heaven, I don't know what that means. Look at Philippians chapter 3. We'll look at verse 20 and 21. Right before Colossians, right after Ephesians. New Testament. Most of my passages will be in the New Testament, even though you're an Old Testament girl. I'm a New Testament guy.
As you well know, we have our citizenship in heaven. It is from there that we eagerly await the coming of our Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ. He will give us a new form to this lowly body of ours and remake it according to the pattern of his glorified body, by his power to subject everything to himself.
So, in Philippians, Paul is saying, our citizenship is in heaven. He's pointing to heaven. And so, some people might say, well, okay, but is that our final destination? Or is that really where we hold our citizenship? And I think that it's important for us to recognize that a lot of Christians, perhaps the majority of Christians, see heaven as their final destination. That's where they're going to go when they die. Okay? So for them, they might say, well, in the future I will be a citizen of heaven. Okay? In the future, someday when I die and go to be with Jesus, I'll be a citizen of heaven. So they're looking at it kind of future tense. It's their final destination. And when they finally arrive there, they'll be citizens. Okay? That's not what Paul is saying. Fortunately for us and unfortunately for them, because Paul is saying our citizenship is in heaven, from which we also eagerly wait for our Savior. So the way Paul is talking, we're already citizens of heaven, or at least he is, and the people he's talking to are. They're already citizens of heaven. It's not something that's going to happen when they die. He says our citizenship is in heaven. It's already there. We're already citizens of heaven. And for people, and this is really important distinction, for people that think, okay, when I die, then I go to heaven, and that's when I become a citizen of heaven, there's no way of them correlating that thinking to what Paul is saying. They're two completely different things. They're not the same at all. One is very linear. Now I live on earth. Someday I will die. Then I will go live in heaven. Now I live in the physical realm. I will physically die, my spirit will remain alive, and I will go live in the spirit realm. That's the way they think. It's very linear. But the way Paul is teaching, it's not linear at all. He's saying, right now, you're in the spirit realm. Your citizenship is in heaven, and you're in the world. And he's not even talking about what happens when they die. Right? And a little bit, you're going to get this new glorious body when your old body wears out. So he's talking about that part of it. But when he's talking about the citizenship, he's talking as if he kind of means it's now. That's kind of the way he's talking. Now, for a lot of Christians, that's hard. Because they've never been taught that, and they don't think that way. They know there's a heaven, they know that God's there, they know Jesus went there, but their citizenship in heaven, someday. Maybe when I die, yeah, okay. But now, they don't have any connection to that. So, yeah.
The word I'm picking, if I go back to 20 as it starts, as you will well know, we have our citizenship in heaven. So that's a now. We have.
Yes.
We have something. If it were later, it would say you will have.
Right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So Paul is pretty clear, even though many believers nowadays are going to struggle with this, because this is not what they've been taught. And it kind of goes to, when you're teaching little kids and you try to make something simple to them, somebody dies, they went to heaven, right? We talk that way. Unfortunately, once we get like beyond 10 or 12 years old, we should be able to understand something a little bit more. But that kind of training and teaching is still kind of ingrained. So when you die, you go to heaven. When you die, you become a citizen of heaven. You live in the world now, you live in heaven later. That's the way a lot of people think. So this kind of language for some refugees can be very encouraging, because they're wandering in the desert and they hear this language, I'm a citizen of heaven, and they go, wow, I belong someplace. I can pull out my passport and it says heaven. I'm a citizen of heaven. I'm just not just wandering around nowhere. And so it can be a great encouragement. But unfortunately, it tends to be more of a discouragement than an encouragement for most refugees. Because it's a discouragement because their first thought is, okay, but I got to die to get there. Because that's what they've been taught, right? When I die, I go to heaven. So they're going, I got to die to get there. And so that isn't going to do me a whole lot of good nowadays. For the rest of my miserable life on earth, I'm going to wander around in the desert until I finally get to 70 or 80, get run over by a truck and die, and then I get to go to heaven, right? So when they hear that they're citizens of heaven, they go, crap, I got to wait. I would be better just being a citizen of a church. At least it's on earth. I can, it's tangible. The other thing that is discouraging for them is some people go, this sounds like an escape. I got to put it off for 50 years, 40 years. It doesn't do me any good now. It's just an escape. It doesn't help me at all with the stuff of my life. The stuff of my life goes on, and the fact that I'm a citizen of heaven and I'll go there someday, what good does that do me? And so I found that for people that are believers, when you talk to them about heaven, and we get all excited about heaven in the spirit realm, that makes them depressed. They think, oh man, I gotta wait for that. That's the way they think. They don't realize that the citizenship in heaven is a now thing, like you said. It's present tense, it's a now thing. So, it's hard to comprehend that people in general are not aware of the two realms. Because for us, it's just fact, right? It's just natural. We see in the spirit, we see in the physical, we understand what's going on in the spiritual realm. But for most people, they're not aware that the spirit realm and the physical realm coexist and operate simultaneously together. They're not aware that there's cause and effects. Demons do things that causes something to happen in the physical realm. People make decisions and speak things, and it allows the enemy to take control of things from the spiritual realm to the physical realm. Most people have no awareness of that stuff. Most believers have no awareness of that stuff. Very few do. Some will talk about it theologically, but as far as being part of their real life, it's not. They don't have any awareness. So when we're dealing with people and we're trying to help them go from being a spiritual refugee to a spiritual immigrant, we have to help them with this. Because we say to them, as a refugee, you just know where you came from. As an immigrant, you need to know where you're going. And we just need to be sensitive to the fact that when we tell them they're going to heaven, that that's their destination, that they don't immediately say, yeah, when I'm 80 years old, I die. That's not the way they're thinking, because if we have to ask them questions and make sure that that's not where they're coming from. Because otherwise, they might miss everything else we say. They might misinterpret it all. We have to help people understand that the spirit realm is part of reality right now, and that we're to be active in it right now. That's the point that takes them over from being discouraged to being greatly encouraged.
That is fascinating. That is just so incredible. Well, that's Luke 10:20. 10:19-20 says, but it says, I gave you, I never ever sung that. When it says, I gave you authority to trample on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. But nevertheless, do not rejoice that the spirits are subject to you, but rejoice because your names are written in heaven.
Yeah.
That is fascinating.
Yeah.
That is incredible. Because we're already in the spirit realm.
We already.
That's why we can see the spirit realm.
Yeah. Yeah. We've been spirit born, so we're living in both realms. And there are many people, and this is the thing that I have to remind myself of all the time, because I come from the South, where most people are Baptists, where a lot of Christians are Baptists. They're not taught any of this stuff.
No.
They're not taught any of this stuff. And they read the Bible and they can quote scripture. When it comes to the things of the Spirit, for the most part, they're ignorant. They have scriptures that help them escape from those conclusions back to something that's more personal.
Oh, interesting.
And so when they become refugees, well, I'll give you an example. A young couple in the Baptist church, very active, very happy, got their kids there, things are going great. The pastor has an affair with the music director. Okay, so the pastor is messing around with the music director, it becomes public knowledge. The pastor is slammed, the music director and the pastor leave. They actually left and started another church in another part of Georgia, and he divorced, all this stuff is going on. Well, these friends of mine, young Christians, they're in their early 30s with their kids, they're crushed. This guy they depended on, he was their pastor, he was their preacher, he was the one that explained the Bible to them, and then he goes and does something like this. So they left, they got out of that church, and they never went back to church. Spiritual refugees. Spiritual refugees. They know where they came from, but they don't know where they're going. Well, all the teaching they had, all the Bible teaching they had, even prophetic kind of teaching, there was never any idea that the spirit realm is now. So for them, here's where they are. They're believers in Jesus, once saved, always saved. They're in their 30s. They're going to have to gut it out until they're 80 and die. And then they get to go to heaven. Seriously. You're never going to go into a church again.
Oh.
Because the guy they trusted, the pastor they trusted, was having sex with the music director. So they're never going to go back there. And their attitude is all those guys are going to be like that. They just want to build big churches. They just want to become famous. Very negative attitude towards the ministry. And they're refugees. And they have no way, they have nowhere to go but the desert. They have nowhere to go. So that's an example of someone who was brought up and taught that the spirit realm exists, but you don't deal with it.